we need to give the domain of this function m of x equals the square root of negative 4 minus x in interval notation. So when I think of domain, I think of all the x values that are going to work with this function. Another way to think of it is what isn't going to work. So if we just think of a square root in general, is it okay to have a negative number under a square root? Well, no, it's not. It won't come out as a real number. Is it okay to have a 0 under a square root if it equals 0? Yes, it is. This is a tricky one because sometimes we want to say no, but it's okay. The square root of 0 is just 0. What about a positive number? Is it okay if it comes out positive? Yes, any positive numbers are okay. So basically, any square root just has to be bigger than 0, has to be positive or equal to 0. So the way we write it is greater than or equal to 0. So really it doesn't matter what's under this square root. This is how we're going to set up the domain, is we know it always has to be greater than or equal to 0. So let's take this over to this function. So that tells us we know that negative 4 minus x, however it comes out, it just has to be greater than or equal to 0, and then this function will be okay. All right? So now we're going to solve for x, so we're going to add the 4 to each side. We end up with negative x is greater than or equal to a positive 4. We want to solve for a positive x, so we can put a 1 in front if we want, and we'll have to divide by that negative 1. So negative divided by negative becomes a positive x. Now, what happens when we divide an inequality by a negative number? Well, that inequality has to flip. So it's x is less than or equal to negative 4. So this is our answer, this is our domain. But, so basically x just can be any number smaller than negative 4, or it can equal negative 4. Now we also have to put this in interval notation. And so when we write this in interval notation, we can think of the same thing. So if x has to be smaller than negative 4, it can be any number smaller, that means it's going to start at negative infinity. It can just be anything smaller. And then it can go up to negative 4. We always do a parenthesis around infinity because it can't be included because it's just going on forever. Now negative 4, do we want a parenthesis or a bracket? Well, we need a bracket because it's equal to. And so that shows it could include negative 4. It could also equal negative 4. Now, if it's hard for you to go from x is less than or equal to negative 4 to this answer, this correct answer of our interval notation, you could also graph it just to make it a little easier. So we could say there's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So if x is less than or equal to negative 4, we'd be here and going down. And so it might be easier to go from the graph to the interval notation. So from the graph we can say, okay, we can see it's going down, so it'll be negative infinity on the left up to negative 4 on the right. So always want to write interval notation from least to greatest.